Well, there are many different levels on which you can watch sport. I'm not pretending that the majority of spectators in the stadium are looking at it in the same way I am. So one thing I've been trying to do in my book is describe different ways of seeing. So the very same sporting event can be watched by two different people in two very different ways. So I call one set of spectators the partisans. They're the people who are there primarily to see their team win. And they'd rather see their team win a bad game. If it's soccer, they'd rather see a 1-0 win than a more dramatic 3-4 defeat. But when I go, and I know I'm not entirely alone, my interest is more aesthetic. So I want both teams to play to the best of their ability. Whereas the partisan, they'd be happy if the opposition have a really bad day and nothing works for them and they just can't get their rhythm going. Nothing works out, so they end up losing. The purist is someone who views sport aesthetically, wants to see a dramatic game. They want to see winners and losers, but they maybe don't mind who wins or who loses. What I'm trying to do is defend an idea that's been out of fashion for a little while. The idea that there are different ways of seeing. Now there's a story that illustrates this, and it comes from more regular aesthetics, not just aesthetics of sport. But there's a story I heard from an art historian, and it may be an apocryphal story, but here it goes. At the Tate Gallery, a security guard found a tourist looking at a fire extinguisher that was mounted on the wall. And the tourist was stroking their chin, putting their head to one side, standing back. The security guard realised that the tourist had made a mistake. They thought that the fire extinguisher was an art exhibit. And it really just was a fire extinguisher. The tourist in that story is seeing this object aesthetically. The security guard doesn't. They see it what we might call purposively. They just see it as something that's there for a purpose to be used in the event of fire. Now the philosophical question is, are they seeing exactly the same thing when they look at this fire extinguisher? Now, one answer is, well, not quite, because one person's taking a lot of aesthetic pleasure from the object. They're admiring its shape, its colour, its smoothness, whereas the security guard isn't. Okay, but we could push that question further. Is it that the tourist and security guard are actually seeing the same thing but just having different thoughts about what they see, which we could call an accompaniment theory? So their perception is accompanied by different thoughts. Or is it that by having those different thoughts, they actually see something different? Now, I argue for that second alternative, which I'd call a perception theory, because the idea is that perception is something that occurs after the thinking. So what we see can be influenced by what we believe and what we desire. I think we can say exactly the same thing in the sporting case. Now, the reason I first thought of this was that I attended a football match in Edinburgh where passions were running high. Heart of Midlothian were entertaining Celtic. And there's a number of reasons for the rivalry there, partly religious, but also the city rivalry between Edinburgh and Glasgow. I got a ticket with the Hearts fans. I didn't mind who won or lost. I just wanted to see a good game. And I found that the Hearts fans around me, they were protesting for every single decision. So the players would go for the ball, it'd go out for just a throw-in. I could see it should have been a Celtic throw-in. But the partisans around me, who had an almost identical view on the same incident, they were saying, it's our ball, Hearts, Hearts. Now, what was happening there? Were they being dishonest? I'm not sure they were. It made me think that although we had almost identical views on the same incident and almost identical retinal images, that they may have actually been seeing the incident a different way because their desire for victory was so strong. It was actually influencing their perception. Okay, so that led me to favour the kind of perception theory approach, and the idea that the partisan and the purist watching the same sporting event could actually see completely different things.